Kia ora koutou, no mai, haere mai, and a very warm welcome to Mahi Matters, New Zealand's employment market update. Today we're looking at job listings rise. Well, that's good news, isn't it? Where do the 2025 opportunities lie? And why are more jobs popping up outside of New Zealand's biggest cities? And what does that mean for the future of work? This week we're joined by Nicole Williams, Head of Jobs at 𝗺𝗲𝘄, to unpack the latest data showing a 13% rise in job listings across New Zealand, but maybe not where you'd expect. So where in New Zealand will the future job opportunities lie? Also on today's show, rejection overload. Why are employees still turning down offers? We explore our latest job opportunities across New Zealand. And lastly, cost of living versus retention. Are pay rise requests on the rise? So this week we're diving into the latest 𝗺𝗲𝘄 jobs data, which shows job listings across New Zealand have jumped 13% in the last quarter, but not where you might expect. So while opportunities in big city centres like Auckland and Wellington have slowed, the South Island is leading the charge with strong growth across regions like Southland, Otago and Canterbury. It's a shift that's changing where the country's job opportunities are emerging, and also how employers and job seekers are navigating this new landscape. So what does the regional shift mean for the future of work in New Zealand? Are we seeing a genuine rebalancing of opportunity beyond the main centres, or is it simply a short-term reaction to economic conditions? To discuss this further, we're joined today by Nicole Williams, Head of Jobs at 𝗺𝗲𝘄. Welcome, Nicole.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for having me, Shannon.
Oh, and of course, it's great timing for this. Well, with the latest Stats NZ unemployment numbers out as well, so it's all very pertinent. But before we jump into all that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience?
Yeah, of course. I run the jobs team here at 𝗺𝗲𝘄. I've done that for the last 18 months, but I've worked for 𝗺𝗺𝘄 for about 8 years, working across different product leadership roles, across tech and our marketplace business as well. And so have been having a great time jumping into the job space and understanding just how well it's connected to the macro environment here and leading the team across New Zealand.
Perfect. And as I mentioned, 𝗺𝗺𝘄's latest report shows that job listings have jumped up 13% in the last quarter, which is certainly very welcome news. But that's largely been thanks to growth in the South Island. What was your first reaction when you saw those numbers?
I guess for us it was very welcomed, but it's also not surprising. It really mirrors the conversations that we're having on the ground with recruiters and employers, where it's definitely a game of two halves. In the South Island, when we chat to people, there's enthusiasm, there's optimism, there's a sense that new projects across construction and infrastructure are getting going. And then when we talk to people across the urban areas, particularly Auckland and Wellington, there is a bit more tentativeness and a bit more concern that it's not quite coming through yet as well. So the numbers really just really reflected what we're hearing on the ground as well.
Yeah, and I think certainly, and I'm sure you would have heard the same this year, the amount of people saying, oh, you know, things are still tough, but we're seeing green shoots. And I feel like we've been a nation of farmers standing out there in the field going, well, when the bloody hell is the grass going to grow? So it is good to see that at least it's growing in the South Island. So why do you think the South Island is leading that rebound? Well, as you said, with Auckland and Wellington are still feeling that lag.
Yeah, certainly what we're hearing is there's a couple of things. So particularly areas like Queenstown are having really, really strong growth, and there's population growth there, there's infrastructure projects kicking off, there's tourism starting to heat up again. So there's a bit of a like sort of microeconomic climate there that's fueling that growth. If we look wider across the South Island, it's a similar theme where there's different projects that are starting to get underway. Like in Christchurch, the new stadium in the heart of the centre is nearing completion at the start of next year. And so there's a sense that the projects are getting going, new ones are starting, and actually we're hearing on the ground that they're finding it hard to already find those skilled tradespeople for the new projects getting started. So it's a really interesting space.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at an event through the Auckland Business Chamber this week, and it was around infrastructure and particularly obviously centred around Auckland, and it was actually quite positive, but a number of projects there, and you can see the flow-on effects that once they start to get up and running, it really just kind of crank the engine going. And of course, Auckland's the engine room of the nation, so we can't wait for that to start. Now, which industries do you think will carry on this hiring momentum into 2026? And which ones do you think might be still struggling to recover or maybe take a bit longer?
Yeah, it's a great question. And what we're seeing at the moment is there's consistency in the industries. So we're seeing across building and construction, across infrastructure, it's starting to improve. Across tourism and retail, it's starting to improve. And where we're seeing the inconsistency is actually more at the regional level. So in terms of whether industries will struggle or not, it does depend a little bit more about where you're looking in the country and not just on the industry. In terms of some of the areas where they're a little bit more tentative, we're definitely seeing sort of some of those white collar office roles. There's some interesting trends there also with AI and entry level roles, and so that's kind of creating a bit of a perfect storm in terms of entry level white collar roles at the moment, and where those are sort of starting to shrink up. But across the board, in terms of our more hands-on industries, so infrastructure, manufacturing, those are all starting to really pick up, which is great to see.
Excellent. And finally, what's one key takeaway? You don't have to limit to one, but what do you think are some key takeaways from this data that you think that most businesses or job seekers are perhaps overlooking?
I think you mentioned it, right? Like, this is really timely to have this conversation with the unemployment stats coming out yesterday. It is still an incredibly tough market for job hunters. And so we still saw applications increasing last quarter. And so it's important to remember that even though we're seeing job listings increasing quarter on quarter, we're still in a market where the overall job listings available are about half what they were back in 2022. So we've got a long way to go before the jobs available is going to catch up to the job hunter demand and the people that are available in the workforce, not just from an unemployment perspective, but also in terms of our underutilization perspective. And so it's really important for us, even though we're looking at these green shoots, to remember it's still a really, really tough job market for people. And so these things are not going to change quickly. It is going to take time for us to come out of this macro situation.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point in taking the long-term view. So you mentioned that there's quite a lot of I feel disconnects at the moment. So, overall, of course, our unemployment rate rose. So, the highest level in the last nearly 9 years. But at the same time, you have the likes of Queenstown, where I think, I might have this wrong, but I think they've started with 2 or something, where they're screaming out trying to find people for work. And there's been a lot around the kind of mass exodus over to Australia, but looking, things are, grass is greener over there. They've got some grass. But actually in the cycle, they're probably still got a bit of pain to go through yet. So looking at those longer term views and not just going, it's brighter over there and let's make a move.
Yeah, and that's another place where that regional story is playing out. So we are seeing lower unemployment in the South Island compared to the North Island. And there's just that unevenness around where those opportunities are starting to spring up versus where people are actually living and working today. And don't just necessarily move across the country really flexibly. And so, yeah, it is really important to notice that there is those sort of differences. And we were actually in Australia last week, and they're already saying it's hard to find people. It feels like a really tight labour market. And so I would say they are just that little bit ahead of us in terms of their recovery. And it doesn't take much for this to switch back and feel like a talent tight market. And so that's the sort of thing I would sort of say to employers, if you're on the fence about whether you should hire someone now, this is a great time to be hiring. There's great talent available, but we are a small country. We have had great talent leave the country. And so maybe in 6 months, 12 months time, you won't have quite that same availability as well. So maybe start thinking about whether you should be hiring now rather than too far down the track.
Yeah, perfect. And you're actually the second guest in a row who we must be on the same kind of page, because you've guessed a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about later. So it's good to see we got the finger on the pulse. We know what's going on. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And of course, you can reach out to Nicole. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Over at Trade Me Jobs.
Perfect. Okay, well, speaking of disconnect, why are candidates still saying no, even in a tough market? Now, the job market might be cooling in the US, but that doesn't mean candidates are settling. So a recent global survey has revealed the top reasons that people are turning down job offers. And although that might seem a little bit strange for us to say in most of New Zealand, as I said, that may be the case. There's a lot of disconnect here in Aotearoa as well, if you take the likes of Queenstown and their market at the moment. And the results of this survey are a really good reminder for employers here in Aotearoa. So even in a market where negotiating power firmly sits more with employers, people are still walking away if the offer doesn't match what matters most to them. So let's put this in a local context. So as I mentioned, Stats NZ has just confirmed this week that the unemployment rate has hit 5.3%, which is the highest in nearly 9 years. Now, on the surface, that would suggest employers can call the shots. But here's the thing, smart employers know how quickly the market can turn and how costly it is to fall out of touch with what workers value. Right now, job security is topping the list of priorities for candidates, which is unsurprising given recent redundancies, restructures, and uncertainty across the board. But as the market stabilises, these priorities will shift. We've seen it before. When confidence returns, people will start prioritising things like flexibility, growth, culture, and purpose again. And they'll move if you're not offering it. And here's the kicker. With a record number of Kiwis heading across the ditch to Australia, we could soon swing back into a talent shortage territory. If we want to keep our talent here, we need to do a much better job of making local opportunities feel worth staying for. That means more than just matching salary. It means building meaningful, stable, growth-focused workplaces that people want to be a part of. So yes, the job market might be on the employer's side today, but the best strategy isn't to lean into that power. It's to stay aligned with what employees care about, build trust, and future-proof your EVP before the pendulum swings again, because it will. So on that note, let's take a look at some of the jobs on offer this week across New Zealand. And are you being paid the right salary? So check out Frog Recruitment's new online salary guide to compare your salary against others in your industry, gain insights into the New Zealand market, and be prepared for your next job interview. So visit Frog Recruitment's website for more information. As always, there's just a selection of the jobs that we have on offer. Great to see. Oh, there's even a newer one for Auckland, I know, because it's mine, but good to see a new one there. And it's been great that it's been steady and a lot more work coming through our Wellington team. Long may it continue. As always, get in touch with the teams in Wellington or Auckland, and we'd love to talk to you further. That is it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us again. As always, we'd love to hear your comments or suggestions on what you'd like us to cover in future shows. Take care and see you next time.